everyone. We are so glad you're here with us today. If you enjoy this episode, please rate, review, and share it so that we can reach more ECEs and childcare workers. My name is Rachel Neville, and I will be your host today. Today, we are so excited to welcome Amanda Quance to the podcast. Amanda is an ECE who has worked with almost all age groups, even up to college students. She is an advocate for high quality, universal childcare who believes that working with children means carrying hope and our dreams for a better world in our hearts while we make messes and build community every day. Thank you so much for being here, Amanda. We're so excited to have you on the podcast.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
I feel like that intro perfectly summarizes so much of the spirit of ECE, and it's just so amazing to be able to talk to people who are working in the field. And yeah, so we're super excited to get into this. So today's topic is going to focus around talking to our elected officials. So we're going to get into all sorts of the nitty gritty, but I know you have lots of great experience with that.
Oh, I've got experience, but we all do, and they're just people. So I think that's the
Yes,
important thing. Yeah.
absolutely. So let's just jump right in. Can you tell us a little bit about your experiences speaking directly with elected representatives?
Sure. So when thinking about like when I've talked to elected representatives, one thing that pops into my mind is how they all come and knock on our doors during election time. And I think that we're often, certainly like my roommates in the past and people that I've lived with are not really keen to talk to a politician who's knocking on their door. We've got other things to do, dinner to make. Um,
Hmm.
but I always jump on that chance to be like, hey, you're here and you're listening. As a politician, having them come to our door and say, vote for me, it's a chance for us to say, hey, what do you think about childcare? And tell them what we think. Like I jump on the chance. So I remember, I'm not sure if I should, name politicians, but at the same time, they're public representatives. So Yasser
Mhm.
Naqvi came knocking on my door back, I think it was I can't remember which election it was, but he was, I think, running provincially. And I just talked his ear off about childcare and about the need for more funding. This was before CWELC. Um, and he was kind of surprised to hear somebody talking so much about childcare. And he didn't win that election, but then wound up being our federal MP for this riding. So when I've gone and made phone calls, I don't know if I'm a familiar face, but I feel like it's okay for me to talk to him about childcare. He was interested that one time he came knocking on your door, and
Yeah.
I'm going to keep talking about the importance of funding quality and affordable childcare. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when people come to our doors, it's also an interesting moment where it's almost like a power swap. They are kind of
Yes.
on our turf, right?
Yes, and they're asking for something from us, right?
Mhm.
Politicians are asking for our votes, right? They want us to vote for them and support them. But once that moment of election is over, then they hold a lot of decision-making power. Whoever gets elected is still responsible to everybody, not just the people who voted for them, right? And so it
Yeah.
doesn't matter what political stripe they are. When they're sitting representing us, we're their constituents, and they love to hear that, right? When a constituent is calling to say, I would like to meet with my representative to talk about these issues that are important in my community, and especially as educators, right? We're not just speaking for ourselves.
Hmm.
We hear children's voices, and they don't get a voice. So we get to talk about how they have better days when we have enough funding, when we have the chance to take a sick day when we need it, and when we have um, enough qualified staff to have a good program, a high quality program. Yeah. And
Yeah,
politicians get to make a lot of those decisions.
absolutely. Yeah, it's so important for them to hear, like you say, not only our lived experience, but how that trickles down in all different aspects of childcare and places where children are.
Yeah.
Um, Something you're also making me think about is this idea of, we are their bosses.
Yeah. We are. we're their bosses, and if we don't hold them accountable, we're slacking off too, right?
Mhm.
I think that, like, when it's election time, sometimes, and I know that I felt this way too. I don't know, should I vote on this issue or should I vote in this election? I don't really know all of the candidates. I don't know every issue. But the thing is, I do know about childcare, right? Like, this is something that I know about because I work with children and families. And that makes me much more of an expert than many of the politicians. So I should go and talk to them about it and say, hey, what do you think? Um, and yeah, it's rare that a politician is going to have more experience than, like, maybe if we're lucky, their children had a childcare spot, but not
Right.
necessarily. So we can tell them we are experts and we should vote and hold them accountable for the choices that they make.
So, I mean, you've touched on this a little bit, but why do you think it's important in particular for ECs and childcare workers to talk with MPPs or MPs or city councilors?
Yeah, because they pay us, I
Yeah.
think, is the main reason. They pay us, and they also have the decision-making power about, like I was saying earlier, they have the decision-making power about the legislation that decides our ratios, um, the licensing requirements, all of that stuff has been decided by politicians, and it's informed by us, and it's also informed by, like, people who work for the Ministry of Education. But politicians need to hear from regular people too. Um, Knowing that childcare is directly funded by city council, and then by the
Mhm.
provincial government, and then by the federal government too, more indirectly. That means that all of those politicians have a say in how much I get paid and whether or not I have a pension. I don't, right?
Yeah.
They're all having an input into that.
Mhm.
So I think it's important that uh, I have to say, whoops, I do have a pension now.
You do.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot. As I said that, I was like, wait, no, just since September, I've been working in a unionized workplace. So I have a
That's
pension.
amazing.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
I'm so happy about it. And I can't believe I forgot. But anyways, off topic. But yeah, but most folks in Ontario who work in childcare, we don't have pensions.
It's true.
And we only have a wage floor. And that wage floor
Mhm.
was decided by our members of provincial parliament. And that wage floor is funded by all three levels of government, right? It's funded by the federal government, who passed the dollars on to the provincial government. And then the provincial government set that wage. And then it gets passed on to city council. And city council decides how to put that money out into the community and what centers meet the requirements
Yeah.
of CWELC, and being part of that provincial funding. But that means that, like, my MPP voted on that legislation. And I think it's really important that they hear from me and from other educators to know, because if we want to have better wages, they're now the folks who decide that. It's not parent fees that decide how much we get paid. It's our elected representatives who decide.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad that you sort of painted that picture of how all of the different levels of government interact because it can be very confusing. But the way you described it really helps solidify that our work is political, whether we want it to be or not, right? And getting
Absolutely.
engaged with that is so important. Um, were
I'd
you,
say we're already engaged in it just by showing
yeah.
up and doing this work. When we're working with children, and we are, like, just checking myself for a second here. I am a white, middle class woman
Mhm.
working in a field that is underpaid and undervalued. Um, a man working for 20 years in the same field would not be making, less than $30 an hour.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's already political. It's already political that we're doing this work that is underpaid, and undervalued. So if we're doing the work and we're doing it well, because we are, right?
Hmm.
We're educators. We're bringing our hearts to the table, and we're bringing our hearts to our work, and we're making children's days wonderful, and that's also political.
It is. And I think, sometimes in ECE, when you think about kids and politics and funding, like it can feel kind of icky and like uncomfortable because we don't want to think about how, these decision makers have such an influence over us. But I think at the same time, as you've very clearly shared, we also have a say. And
Mhm.
I'm wondering, Amanda, like, have you always been the type of person who was really outspoken and felt, that they could speak up in these situations? Or how did you, and if not, like, what made you become more confident in that way?
I don't know if I've always been somebody who's been outspoken. I mean, maybe, but also it's come from practice. I think I've
Mm,
gotten more confident with practice. I think I'm a bit impulsive, so
mm,
I think I might have said some, spoken up in a situation where I was just like, hey, we're talking about post-secondary education and funding, but has anybody noticed the underfunding of the early years too?
mm,
So back when I was a student, I was like, what about the underfunding over at that end of the spectrum? And yeah, I guess practice makes me more comfortable and confident. But I do think that I'm actually motivated very much by caring about children. And so knowing that, like as educators, we know that the better educators are educators who stay in the field and gain experience and knowledge and practice, and who are qualified. And I mean, not to say that everybody doesn't bring important and valuable things to the table, but we know that
mm,
that improves children's quality of childcare. And
mm,
knowing that those decisions that affect whether or not people choose to stay in the field are political, knowing that whether or not we have the funding to include children with special needs, that's political. Like all of
yeah,
those decisions aren't being made by me, but I have
mm,
to put them into practice, right? So
yeah,
I think wanting the best for children means that I have to speak up, right? And wanting the best for families, wanting to see enough childcare that parents can choose to go back to school or choose to go back to work when they want to. Um, yeah, I think that means that I have to speak up and I have to be a little uncomfortable sometimes.
yeah. Yeah, because it is uncomfortable sometimes, asking for more money or more support, that doesn't always feel good.
No, it can feel totally awkward and
Yeah.
uncomfortable. And at the same time, I don't know. When I feel awkward and uncomfortable, I just try to remind myself, yeah, they might look like they're comfortable, but I'm sure they're feeling it on the inside too, right? Like when we're talking to
Yeah.
strangers, even if there are representatives, you know, they feel awkward too.
Yeah. They
And
maybe just have more media training and a game face.
yes, exactly. They
Yeah.
can smile and they're better at redirecting questions, like
Mhm.
getting back onto the topic that they want to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah. I do think too that, it's just human nature to be moved by these things. When someone tells you about how their life changed because they got a pension, you
Hmm.
can't help but feel that.
Yeah, yeah. And I think when we're talking to politicians, they're moved by the same things as everybody else, right? So when
Yeah.
I've talked to politicians about having not having access to a childcare space, right? Like when my son was small, I didn't have and as educators, we know lots of folks who are so glad to have childcare when they
Yeah.
get a spot, right? And so when we talk to politicians about like, hey, we're aiming in Ontario for two-thirds of children to have childcare spaces. Like that's our goal right now
Yeah.
with the Canada-wide early learning. That's still leaving a third of children without a childcare space. And
Yeah.
when we talk to politicians, like in my neighborhood, we're not creating any new spaces. We've already attained the goal. And I'm like, mm-hmm. Yeah, no, there are a lot of families under six who don't have childcare spaces. And there are a lot
Yeah.
of school age kids who don't have childcare spaces. And it is life-changing for them. And so if you know like a
Yeah.
story of a family who, um, I'm just gonna try to think of a quick one off the top of my head here. I know a family who um, yeah, mom's able to work a full day. She can counts on that after school childcare. And
Mhm.
because she's able to work a full day, she's also moving forward in her PR application, right? Because
Wow.
she can have a full-time job. If she didn't
Yeah.
have a full-time job, it would be much harder for her to make that permanent residency paperwork keep going forward, right? Because it's
Yeah.
expensive and because, a full-time job is desirable. And she wouldn't be able to do that if she didn't have childcare. And
Absolutely.
our elected representatives love those stories because they understand them. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and that story too just shows how having a childcare space that is affordable can change everything in your life. Like not just having the ability to work, but like the PR and be able to, chase and reach these goals that people have. It's so life-changing. I'll share, Amanda, that I'm expecting a baby in June, and
do you have your name on a childcare waiting list?
I have my name
It's the
on
question I always
17
ask.
lists. Yes, the day I found out, I got on those lists,
Mhm.
and
Good for
I
you.
think,
Yeah.
thank you. This conversation is landing differently for me than it ever has before because I've worked as an RECE, but now I'm also experiencing the parent side of things and
Hmm.
the fear that comes with the uncertainty. So, yeah,
Hmm.
it is such a complicated and it's scary to not know what's going to happen next, you know?
For sure. Yeah. I think that on the flip side of that fear though is the hope, right? I hope
Yeah.
that you find a wonderful spot. I hope that you
Yeah.
have a wonderful time with and uh I hope that we keep building a childcare system so that the children today have spaces that are high quality, where educators are
Yeah.
doing jobs that they love and that they can also pay the rent while they're doing them.
Yeah.
And that we can see early childhood education, so that we can see childcare as a field that's important, um, not just in the immediate, but this is a future field, right? Like this is
Yeah.
this is work that is all about the future, and
Yeah.
um, it is so long term, right? Like the long term
Yeah.
benefits keep going and going and going, in terms of like academic outcomes, if you want to look at that, but also in terms
Hmm.
of instilling values. And yeah, in this time of thinking about what our country is and does, and I think a lot of people
Hmm.
are musing about what makes Canada Canada. And I think
Hmm.
that we should think of childcare as something that we do, and that
Yeah.
we take care of each other, whether we're sick um, or whether we're young and need protection and support and play.
Yeah. I think too about how, when you have that conversation on your doorstep with somebody who's going door to door, a politician, that's, you're participating in this sort of legacy of not only all the work that's already been done to achieve this 10-a-day agreement, but also you're working towards securing that for children who haven't been born yet, who, we
Yeah.
want to have that same opportunity. So I don't know, maybe this is sentimental of me, but I feel like it is connected to this much bigger picture of, the story of childcare in this country, in this province.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're building childcare, and we're there every day taking care of children, setting up
Hmm.
activities, laughing with them, singing with them, making messes and cleaning them up. And we're doing that every day. And it feels sometimes like that work is unseen, but it has that ripple effect. But we can be that ripple effect too, right? We can go and we
Yeah.
can talk to the city councilor who doesn't know anything about childcare, and we can tell them, hey, I work in your neighborhood and in your ward or your riding,
Yeah.
and I can tell you that we don't have enough childcare. And wouldn't it be awesome for you to be the
Hmm.
counselor who makes sure that there is more childcare established in your neighborhood, so
Yes.
that more families, like what a legacy. And then
Hmm.
as early childhood educators, we actually are doing the work, right? Like we're making it real. And
Yeah.
yeah, politicians should hitch on to the hard work that we're doing and show us some respect as well
Totally.
in their decision
Absolutely.
making.
This isn't on our questions list, but I'm curious if if you were setting up a meeting with someone this week, what
Mhm.
would be your like number one, your top one or to three things that you would want to talk to them about?
Oh, this is a good question. Okay, when I have asked to meet with a politician, whether it's an MP or an MPP or a city councillor, I always think about like who else can come with me because
Hmm.
I like to have company. So I'm going to think about who else is going to come with me, and together we'll talk about like, oh, what are you going to say? What are you going to ask? What am I going to say? What am I going to ask? And then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to think about like how do we connect? Like, what is the thing that we have in common? And I might do a little bit of research about this candidate, right? Or this
Yeah.
politician. I might like look up, where are they from? Where did they go to school? What are the issues? And they're very public about the things that matter to them. So,
Hmm.
it'll be out there. Whether it's, like speaking a second language or having children, whatever the case is, I'm going to find like the thing that I have a personal, or the person that is coming with me has a personal connection to.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to talk about, or I'm going to think before we talk about what our big ask is, like what we want them
Mhm.
to do at the end of the meeting. Um, and that ask, I think this week that ask would be, if it was with an MPP, I'd be saying, "Hey, have you looked at the AECEO and the Ontario Coalition for Better Childcare's budget submission recommendations? And like, we
Yeah.
should definitely be funding childcare as much as the federal government is funding on childcare in Ontario. So, like, dollar for dollar matching that would be great. We could totally see more affordable spaces happen, and we could see better wages for educators so that we can start addressing the crisis in our workforce. So I would say, can you let me know that you've read this and ask me a question about it or something simple,
Mm.
so just to keep the conversation going with that politician.
Yeah.
And when I'm meeting with a politician, the other thing that I do, I might not know all of the answers to their questions.
Hmm.
So I'm going to be sure to, if I'm asking them to read the budget submissions, I'm going to send that in
Yeah.
advance. Um, but I'm also going to send a follow-up email afterwards to say, hey,
Hmm.
here are some answers to questions that you had, or here's somebody that you can talk to if you have, like, because I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
The three things would be like bring someone, find something in common, and then have a task, an ask
Mhm.
for your politician when you're going to meet with them.
Oh, that's awesome. And the accountability of, get back to me about this is so great
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. They will often pass that on to their staff, and that's okay. Get to know their
Mhm.
staff. Their staff are super valuable to them and important as well. So, yeah.
Amazing. And bringing a friend, I think, is so helpful because, everyone has different knowledge bases and just feeling like you're not by yourself can really be helpful.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be someone who's an early childhood educator or somebody that you work with. It can be anybody, right?
Hmm.
And they can ask questions, or you can be like, hey, if you're interested in finding out how this goes, you can come with me
Yeah.
and you can be there as my moral support and I'll do the talking, or you can
Mhm.
ask somebody that you know who's more comfortable talking and be like, hey, can I be your moral support?
Absolutely. Our community organizer, Erin Philby, always says after you do the hard thing and talk to the politician, you must get ice cream after.
Oh, ice cream is a good idea. Yeah,
Yes.
totally treat yourself. And I think anytime, like, we have to remember these people who have a lot of decision-making power, they don't know about childcare necessarily, right?
Yes.
They we get to tell them a bit about our lives. And I think we've all had those conversations with people who don't know about childcare and they're kind of dismissive and like, oh,
Yeah.
they demean our work by saying that it's just you're just singing songs or you're just
Yeah.
changing diapers. And that attitude um is because so much of what we do is unseen, and this is a chance to show what we do and to really celebrate it. So it is also really wonderful to say, like, you know what, this week with the school age children, we did an egg drop where the kids
Mm.
used recycling. Like we brought in a whole bunch of recycled materials and they made packages to drop eggs from different heights to see if they
Wow.
could package and protect their egg enough so that it wouldn't break.
Hmm.
And I don't think a politician is going to think the same way about an after school childcare program if they know that kids are learning about they're learning about engineering, they're learning about design, and they are testing and using the scientific method to understand what's happening when they play and work together as a team to do this really silly activity that's a lot of fun. And
Yeah.
there was so much laughing and like excitement. And it was a blast. And that happened in an early childhood education program, right? In a childcare program. And um, it's the kind of thing that, if we tell our elected representatives about that and we talk about it, then they know a little bit about childcare and they can use that as their touch point when they're voting or when they're talking with other politicians about childcare.
Yeah. Yeah. Stories like that really make it real. And next time they hear about childcare, that's stuck in their brains, you know?
Yeah, it's something real that's happened and they won't think it's just singing songs or changing diapers.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's an interesting point too, Amanda, like to make the care of it come alive too, right? Because I think
Hmm.
that story you shared is so much like the education piece of ECE, right?
Hmm.
But then I also often think about like that I want politicians to understand that the care is just as important, that it is part of the
Yeah.
work. And you can't have that egg drop experience without the care and the trust that you've developed with those kids.
Absolutely, and the relationships that we have, and knowing the children and their friendships, and being able to support their care for each other. Right? These are school
Mhm.
age children, so they don't have the same needs as younger children, but they still have problems that need solving and
Yeah.
feelings that get hurt and moments of sadness and worry as well as moments of joy and as educators, our role is to make those spaces, but also build those relationships with children and families. And yeah, I think it's funny because politicians are all about like, making relationships and making connections. And as educators, we're talking with a group, like I'm working with school age children. So I've got, almost 30 children that I work with every day, and that's 30 families. And
Yeah.
politicians are like, whoa, 30 people, 30 votes. That's actually 60 votes, right?
Yeah.
In their riding. And that's looking at them as numbers. And
Mm.
politicians, I don't think they look at them as numbers necessarily, but election day is about numbers.
Mhm.
Um, but we only see them as families, right? And we only know about them as the parent of this child, and somebody who's having a really good time at work or a really hard time at work and coming in frazzled at the end of the day or coming in really like, oh, this is the best time. I'm going home with my kid or whatever the case is. We know them as people and with the complexities and relationships that are there and we end up um, part of their support system. Yeah, it is community building, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. ECEs are such a touch point for that community
Hmm.
building and to help politicians see that, if their goal is to build relationships and community and eventually get those votes, that, ECEs are kind of a way into that as long as you have that reciprocal relationship with them.
Yeah, and we get to find out about each other, right? Like, I hope that
Mhm.
politicians learn, and I'm not afraid of politicians learning all of the great things that we do in early childhood education, right? Like in childcare, we are
Mhm.
doing amazing stuff, and it's usually not super public, but all of that
Yeah.
amazing stuff, I'm happy for politicians to learn about. And as we
Mhm.
go along, we're going to learn about them too, right? We're going to learn about the politician
Mhm.
who brushes us off and doesn't have anything useful to say, the politician who sticks with their idea that educators aren't doing anything very important and isn't, like a wage floor enough for the work that you're doing. Those
Yeah.
politicians, they're going to show
Yeah.
their true colors in their conversations with us, and and we can make informed decisions as well,
Hmm.
right? By talking with them. If we feel like we don't know enough, I think we all hesitate sometimes about should I vote? Should I not? Go talk to your politician, find out if they are somebody that you want to vote for. And
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. So, what would you say to an EC or childcare worker listening to this podcast who wants to get more involved politically, but maybe feels a little bit scared, or like you said, they're not sure what to
Mhm.
do or what to say?
Yeah. Um, the first thing to do is to, talk to the people around you and find out if you're already a member of an organization, right? Um, if you're part of a union or if you're part of the Ontario Coalition for Better Childcare because your center is already a member. And yeah, if you're not part of an organization, it's good to reach out to them and find out what's going on. And there can be a lot of entry points, right? Like you can, um, and yeah, buddies help. Having somebody
Yeah.
that you are friends with, that you work with, going and checking this stuff out together can be really great. Yeah, send somebody like go on to the AECEO website and or follow them on socials and see if there's an event happening or
Mhm.
um, if there's a new release or if there's a petition to sign, and then pass it on to your buddy and be like, "What do you think? Are you
Mhm.
into this too?" And from there, there are so many things that we can do, right? There are organizations. If there's no local organizing happening, there are tools online that you can
Mhm.
bring to your local organizing. And talking to your buddy is actually local organizing. That's that's all it is, right? Like just
Yes.
talking to the people that you're spending time with. And um yeah, and when elections come around, that's a great time to talk to people. But if you're feeling if you feel like, hey, I want to get involved and I do want to talk to my politicians, um, go for it. Don't even hesitate because actually it's going to take a couple of emails and a couple of phone calls before you actually get a meeting. So just
Yeah.
persist and keep trying. And yeah, and definitely I look to the organizations like the Association of Early Childhood Educators of Ontario and the Ontario Coalition for Better Childcare as two places that I get information from. And yeah, there's like almost always something that we can jump on and be
Yeah.
like, yeah, okay, here's this letter that I'm going to sign on to, and I'm not just gonna, I'm going to take it a step further because clicking
Hmm.
online is one thing, but well, why don't I take this letter to my politician and to
Hmm.
my representative and say, hey, I think I sent this to you by email, but I thought I'd come and talk to you about it.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, that first step of being brave and putting yourself out there and finding your people, right? Whether that's an
Mhm.
organization like us or your colleague or your friend. But that first step of being brave can sometimes be the hardest, but I think after that, it gets easier.
It does get easier. And those conversations that we have in childcare where we notice the problems and we
Hmm.
we notice that like, wow, it is really frustrating that so let's say you're working in a center and nap time is bananas because you're in the preschool room and there are a bunch of kids who, their parents aren't keen for them to nap and they're not keen to nap, but you've got reduced ratios because it's nap time. And so you've
Yeah.
got a lot going on and actually fewer adults in the room to support um, trying to get the kids to be quiet so that the sleepers can sleep and the wakers can quietly be awake. Um,
Yeah.
when we complain to each other about why do we have this stupid reduced ratio at such a crucial time, right? Like why?
Yeah.
Like if everybody was napping, that's one thing, but that's never the case. So why do we have a reduced ratio at this time? Why are we allowed to have fewer adults here in the room with children? And we can be frustrated about that, But the solution is, again, like it's out there and it's political. And that's, deciding collectively, hey, let's go and bug our politicians or say we need funding for nap time, guys. We need better
Yeah.
ratios during nap time because it is not it is not everybody go to sleep time. And
Yeah. Absolutely. And how would they know that if you didn't tell them, right?
they have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if in the childcare sector, we're always making things work with just barely enough. If we
Mm,
always make ends meet without kicking up a fuss and saying we need better funding so that we can actually hire extra staff to cover lunch breaks, to cover
yeah.
professional development, to cover programming time. If we make do,
Mm,
then the politicians don't need to hear from us. So we need to make a fuss and say, "Hey, look at this amazing stuff we do. We need
yeah.
more money."
Yeah, absolutely.
Talking to people about childcare, um, and how important our work is, and how we need political decisions that fund childcare and that make sure that childcare is high quality.
Mm,
Um, So often, like Rachel, you told me that you're expecting. So often
yes.
when we talk to politicians, we find out about those connections as well. And
Mm,
that's a chance, it's an open door to say, I'm vulnerable as a politician, or I know someone who is having children and they're worried about finding a childcare spot. It's a really human moment where we can say,
yeah.
yeah, I want this for you. I want you to find a good childcare spot that is affordable, that is part of Seawell, that is in your neighborhood or close to your work. I want that for you. I want that for everyone. And to make that happen, it's, we just have to point to the solutions. We know the problems. So we got to tell people.
Yeah, absolutely. Amanda, thank you so much for being here. It's been so awesome talking with you and hearing a bit more about your work and all the extra work that you're doing to try to make this sector a better place. We're so grateful.
Oh, I'm totally taking stuff from this conversation too. I'm going to have a lot more ice cream in my future. Thank you.
Yes, more ice cream for all ECs.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider becoming a member. The link to join us will be in the episode description. Your membership makes a difference in the lives of ECEs and childcare workers, children, and families, and allows us to continue doing this work. To all the members currently supporting us, thank you so much. To all the ECEs and childcare workers listening, you are such an important part of what makes childcare amazing, and your voice is so important.